Okay, so for the profit, we are going to project what the profit margin will be. So it's this here, I'm projecting about a 1.1% profit margin going forward. And so now let's break down the profit margin a little bit. So the profit margin is primarily driven by the house edge, but there's also some other costs. So it's house edge minus some other costs. So like the house edge, what that is basically the like a casinos, in the long run the house always has a probabilistic edge, and BitDice's house edge is 1% currently. So if you look at their previous profit track record, in 2017 it was 1%. In previous years it's a little bit lower than 1%. So probably because there's some other costs that's eating into the house edge, and I think this makes sense as they're ramping up. They need to pay their developers and things like that. So I think the same will be like that going forward, where they will have a certain house edge and then there will be some cost taken out of it. So this is actually also in line with what they're projecting themselves. Like they are projecting a 1.12% profit margin in their mediocre case. And as they're explaining it, so they are projecting that their house edge increases in the future as they introduce some high margin games. So most of their games will still stay at the 1% house edge, but they will also have other games that are going to have a 4% house edge. So in the mediocre case, they are projecting 20% of share coming from a 4% house edge and 80% from a 1% house edge. So that, if you do the math, is about a 1.6% house edge. And then in the optimistic case, they just basically have a higher share of the high house edge games. So that's 30%. In extremely optimistic is 40%. So then here I'm using the mediocre case of 1.6%, and then I'm just subtracting some other costs to that. So you have this conservative estimate of 1.1%, and it stays the same going forward. Now we can take a look at their profit in BTC. In this projection is showing 6,228 Bitcoins. This is in line with their mediocre case of 6,217 Bitcoins. So it's like slightly better than their mediocre case. So again, what this is saying is that their projections make sense, is not unrealistic, it has like reasonable assumptions behind it. So now let's move on to the payout. So basically the payout is probably the ultimate metric that most token holders would look for, since that's what they're getting paid, and it's also a culmination of like how well the casino is doing. So the payout here, I have it at 70%. And then this is exactly what it says in the BitDice white paper, that 70% of BitDice casino profits will be distributed in ETH to all holders each quarter. So I think I'm projecting a 70% payout basically every year going forward. I think so. I think it is likely that it will stay 70%. There is really nothing that is, like binding them to that. I think that it could change. However, I think, this is sort of like you can take them on good faith that it will be 70%. Just like if you look at kind of their previous track record with their previous investor program, they have been like pretty good to investors, and also if you revise the payout ratio downwards, it will be very negative to the price of the token. I think this is sort of similar to how dividends work with stocks. So this is why I think that, I believe the 70% payout. So that's the assumption I'm making, 70% payout. And all this translates to a payout per token. Here, what I'm getting is a 20-cent payout per token in this projection. And we can, again, compare that to BitDice's own projection. Again, the mediocre case, notice how they had 11 cents per token, and our 20 cents is, quite a bit higher, especially if you look at how the revenue and profit has been, only slightly higher than their projections. And the reason for this is basically just because of the price of Bitcoin. So the price of Bitcoin was lower when they did this projection, since it has been basically kind of rising all year. So when you translate to US dollars now, you just get a higher US dollars. However, it's still reasonable to look at it in terms of US dollars because their ICO amount was given in US dollars. So I think it's it's just a good thing that it's coming out to be 20% rather than 11%, 20 cents rather than 11 cents. Okay, so also in my projection, I'm projecting higher payout in coming years as they continue their expansion strategy. Obviously, this would also depend on the price of Bitcoin. You can plug in your own price of Bitcoin prediction here as well. So basically, that is all for the financial projections. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. You're welcome to, give your opinions on the assumptions. If you think they're reasonable, if they make sense, you can make your own financial projections and share them below. And also you can take a look at my blog post, which is also going to be linked below. I also have a link to the ICO if you would like to look into that. So that's it, guys. Thank you for listening.